His name is Tom Cratsley.
The microphone is on.
Okay, he put one here, so I thought it was picking me up.
It used to be on.
Okay. That one is on, but, okay. We'll do this.
There you go.
Thank you, Tom.
This is on there. She wasn't picking her voice up?
It wasn't, but it is now.
It is now, okay.
Oh, she got the other one, yeah.
So we got the other one. All right, our inspirational speaker is Tom Cratsley, who is quite the inspiration to many of our students and many of you here. Tom Cratsley has worked in the fields of counseling, spiritual healing, and teaching for over 30 years, and is the creator and developer of the restructuring method of accessing, releasing, and transforming unconscious resistance patterns. Tom is an ordained minister with Fellowships of the Spirit, and for over 20 years he has served as an associate director of their School of Healing and Prophecy. While at Harvard Divinity School, Tom was inspired to direct his attention to matters of the human heart and the possibilities of growth and transformation through development of the spiritual dimensions of the heart. Since then, he has created numerous classes and workshops to support others in exploring the vast dimensions and extraordinary healing potential of the heart. Tom lives with his wife Ellie and their daughter Tara in the spiritualist community of Lilydale, New York. You ever heard of that? Where they operate Harmony House, a year-round guest house. So I present to you Tom Cratsley.
Thank you, Barbara. Well, you know, when I signed up to speak at this date, I wasn't sure, but I didn't know what the topic was at the time. And then when I got the topic, callings, oh, that was kind of foreign to me, because when I did not grow up in a fundamentalist tradition, although I attended some church Baptist and Presbyterian churches and so on, you know, where that was a really prominent subject in a lot of churches. And so I thought to myself, it's like, I'm anything but callings. Like, I was just the opposite growing up. I was looking for reasons to get away from the church, you know? and in a serious way, I was looking for reasons to understand why I thought the church was teaching things that didn't make any sense to me, you know? So I was curious, and I explored all kinds of things growing up in metaphysics, and I was drawn to psychic phenomena and matters of the mind, you know, in particular. So I spent a lot of time searching that. So I had to stop myself to think about, well, how can I fit my story into this sort of callings? So I started to look at it in a different way, and a way of what callings came to be for me was the moments in time in life where you recognize something of your alignment with your spiritual truth, right? Something that calls you to be in alignment with your spiritual truth. And so I started to examine some elements of that in my own life. And I went back to, like, I was 8 years old, and we had neighbors. I lived out in the country in Attica, New York. We had neighbors who were farmers, and Dick and Larry Colton were the young boys in that farm family. Got to be friends with them, and used to love to go out and on their field exploits, on the tractors, you know, doing all the different, farm chores. It was an exciting thing for me. So here's the first event that I was called to think about when it came to the story of calling. And I'm on the back of a tractor, Alice Chalmers tractor, if you're familiar with those. I was on the back of the tractor, and I had my hand on the back, on the seat, and I'm standing on the drawbar. And I thought, okay, well, I think I'm just going to go back to the hay wagon. I'm going to walk. I walked the drawbar, and the tractor was in motion, and I did, and it was a mistake, and I fell, and Dick stopped the tractor exactly at the right time, because the tire from the hay wagon was right up against my throat. I even left a mark. And there was something that happened in that moment. It was like I knew that I was supposed to be alive in this world. At some deep level that hit me, you know. And so that was the first visitation of that particular energy. There's one I want to share that came in later. And my curiosity led me to, as I got older and got curious about, again, the psychic phenomena thing. There was a little church in Buffalo, actually run by this woman here, Edith Wendling. And I went to that church. I also was part of a metaphysical coffee couch at the University of Buffalo. And one of the things we did at metaphysical coffee couch, the subject of Lilydale came up. And with that road trip, we got to go out there, you know. And so that summer was 1968. That summer, a group of us came out. In fact, Elaine Thomas was one of the members of that group. And we came out here to Lilydale, and I was fascinated by a lot of things. But when I went into that healing temple, and I saw what was happening there, that something just grabbed me. And I'm looking at it, it's like, that's the thing. That is the thing I need to understand. You know, didn't know much about it, but there was something happening there that stirred something in me, you know, and I needed to pursue that. And it has been, you know, a pursuit of mine pretty much ever since. Yeah. So then what happened was, you know, I ended up going to Harvard Divinity School, not entirely sure why. Again, you know, so here's like I knew I was looking at the intellectual side of things, which never really satisfied me thoroughly. But I met some interesting people there, and it drew me into another group of people. They were part of an organization that traveled around the country. The name of the organization was DMA. And I left Divinity School after a year. And I was listening to a radio show in Boston, WBZ, and they were interviewing a man. His name was Robert Fritz, who was an expert on the creative process. And so he was talking about all, and as he was talking, I was identifying all these metaphysical traditions that he was referring to, although he wasn't conscious, he wasn't naming them at all. And I started making references to these things in the conversation over the air. He says, "Why don't you come to my office? We should really talk." So I did. I made an appointment, got together with him, and we had a really good conversation. I decided, okay, I could work with this organization. And so I did that for a number of years. I traveled around the country with them, and I became the first sort of senior teacher that he had. I was allowed to even develop my own courses and teach them under the wing of that organization. And that was very powerful for me. And one of the most powerful things was it drew me into an understanding of collective spiritual consciousness, you know. Very different from church collectives. You know, as I was leading meditation circles in different cities around the country. So it drew me into a whole different understanding of myself in relationship to that collective spiritual energy, which was so profound. And so that was the next sort of piece. And what I would do, and I lived in Boston for like 13 years, but I spent a significant part of every summer coming back to Lilydale and working the Healing Temple. And that was very satisfying to me. It was a really important part of the general thrust of the calling, if you will. And so it was about 87 thereabouts, at the beginning of fellowships, that I got introduced to the gentleman in the back here, Mr. Mark Thomas, and to all that he and Elaine were doing in their spiritual work, and then the beginning of fellowships, and I was really drawn into working. Everything felt in alignment and balance, with what they wanted to do and what I felt was important spiritually. And so within a few years, I was invited to be faculty member, and I've been here ever since. And then the next thing I wanted to talk about was wait a minute, there's one other thing I wanted to put in here. Is that the shift, and this goes back to, I'm talking about the thing about being alive and being, recognizing how important that was. When it was in 1992, and I was living pretty much permanently in Lilydale at the time, and I was walking down North Street, which is the street that my house and my wife's house, our house is on right now, North and Cleveland. And I get this download voice, and the voice is, "This is going to be your house." And I go, "With what?" Now, I didn't have any debts at the time, but I didn't have any money to buy a house. So I had to stop myself. I said, I've heard these voices before, and they didn't really let me down. So I go, okay, I'm going to have to investigate this. So I made an appointment with the owner, and I knew that someone else had made an offer that got turned down. And so in our discussions, I said, and this was in May of that year, May, early June. And I said, well, by September, I can have a down payment of $6,000 for you. And so we roughly agreed upon the terms, and I had no idea where I was going to come up with that money, because I don't work, and I wasn't working in the summer. I was using the summer for the Healing Temple, right? So I had no idea where that money was going to come from. So I shared this story with some friends, and I get a call in the middle of the summer from the sister of a friend, and she says, "I hear you're interested in buying property." I said, "Yeah, oh yeah." And she said, "Well, I have money in a CD that I'm willing to lend you, And I said, "Oh, okay. So what are we talking? How much are we talking?" She said, "About $6,000." And I said, "Oh, that's even more interesting." But anyway. And so I had the loan and I had the house that fall. And interestingly, simultaneously that summer, I met my wife here. So all of those pieces, were aligning as I was kind of letting myself listen to the calling. And about a year or so into that, this is the other interesting, and this is going to refer back to the first time that I had that near accident with the tire accident. I was working on redoing the roof of our house, because the house was old. It did need a lot of work, and that was not a problem for me. I could put a lot of muscle into it, to do it. But I had some friends over, and he's one. And we're going to do the roof. Joey was one of them. We're doing the roof, and I thought, I got to get started on this early one morning. And I'm on the back of the roof. I have the ladder up, and I'm taking a 4x8 sheet of plywood up. And as I'm ready to step off the ladder onto the roof, a gust of wind caught me, and I was like, oh, got rid of the plywood. And fortunately, when I came down, I hit feet first and rolled. And for some reason, I was able to get up and finish out the day's work when Joey and the other guys came along. And then, like a day or so after that, the compression set in, and it was like I was in a lot of pain, and was kind of bedridden for a good week, at least a good week or so. And this gentleman back here came by. He said he offered to do some hands-on healing for me, and he did. And while I don't know if I ever told you this, Mark, but while you were working on me, I had this vision of myself as an infant in this life wanting to die. And I had remembered stories from my parents that when I was an infant, I had pretty bad infant asthma. And I did almost die a number of times, so they got me to the hospital just in time. And as I was looking at this while I was getting the healing, I was immediately changing the script of that. I was like, no, I'm here to stay. Things are good here. And as soon as I reckoned with that, that thing that from infancy, the pain went away. Yeah, the pain went away. So, and I could help finish the roof. And other things that had to be done. There were many other things that had to be done. Yeah. And then the one other element that's important, and this happened a little bit earlier, and you made reference to it in the introduction, and that was when I was traveling around the country. I was having a great time, running circles and doing all the things that I was doing, meeting interesting people. And during that time, I got this other download that said, this is not your work. Your work is about the heart. I'm thinking, I'm okay. I'm thinking, I don't really need to change the direction right now. And then I knew enough that I had to stop and listen, really listen. And then I spent some time exploring, meditation around the heart and work around the heart. And I got together with a buddy of mine in Boston, and we fashioned a workshop or two around understanding the heart and getting. And as I started doing that, it really took me much deeper into my understanding of the spiritual realm and my relationship to the spiritual realm. And so it was a powerful transformation. But the final piece of that puzzle was an interesting one, because I had met a woman in New York, and I was smitten by her, so to speak. And we were together for a couple of weeks. And it was very obvious at the couple of weeks, she had no similar interest in me. So I made a very powerful choice and decision. I chose to honor the love that I was experiencing no matter what. But what did that mean for me? What it meant was that I could let myself feel the positive energy of the love, and anything that was antagonistic to that, I had to acknowledge it and let it go. And so it was a process of about 2 weeks where I was doing that. And I was going inside and it's like acknowledging the need for reciprocity, let it go, acknowledging, any sense of personal shortfall that she's not interested in me because of this or that or whatever. This one thing after another which just kept coming up. I kept identifying, breathing it out, and staying present. And this is the key part, is the presence, staying present in my heart through the whole thing. And so one night, the process was so powerful, I lost like 5-6 pounds in one night. Yeah. And so after a certain point, it became, I felt free. I felt like, I don't need this relationship. Fine. So I give her a call, and I make an appointment to get together with her the next time I was in New York, just to talk about friendship. Right? At our appointed time and meeting place, she doesn't show. And I'm like marginally triggered. So I call a good friend of mine, and we get together and we're playing pool, and I'm commiserating with him, what had happened around the relationship. And he says to me, "Tom, I got to tell you, I slept with her last night." And so it was an amazing experience, because what happened was I had, only like a fraction of any sense of jealousy was immediately replaced by this overwhelming sense of love for him as a friend, to be willing to tell me that, because up until that point he had no knowledge that I had an interest in the woman, right? So this is an important piece of that story. Up until that point, he had no, knowledge that I had any interest in her, and so what that was really an interesting story for me, because it showed me that my higher self says, well, if you really mean this, pal, let's take on jealousy too, and found a way to bring that into the story and to support me in that way. And so from that, for months after that experience, I was kind of in love with everybody and everything. The rest of my life set in, and then it's been it's been a great journey. But without that backdrop, I wouldn't have had the strength of heart to be able to address some of the other challenges I've had in my life since then. So those are what I would call my callings. And I know that with each and every one of you, if you look into your life, you'll find places that were your callings, and where things changed, where you had a different sense of self and a different sense of the universe supporting you, etc. So, well, that's all I have to share tonight, and then I'd like to leave that with you.